exhausted every evil plan in my filing cabinet. From A to Y.
A to Y?
Yeah, A to Y, you know, the
What about Z?
C.
Z, the letter after Y.
Y. C. Plan Z. Here it is. Just like you said.
Oh, boy.
Oh. It's evil. It's diabolical. It's lemon-scented. This Plan Z can't possibly fail. And I will rule the world.
Alright, we're back. What's up, everybody? Generation Z here. I'm your host, Russell. Sure, we talk about technology and all that relevant stuff. Did you hear about Janet Napolitano? She resigned. Of course you heard about it because it was in all the newscasts that we play here at Copperhead 1240. You probably heard about Janet Napolitano, her resignation, be it voluntary or not, we do not know. DHS Chief Janet Napolitano resigns. That's sort of the top of the news today because we have nothing better to talk about, really. We have to worry about Janet Napolitano. It's the top of the news. Article here from slash.org, of course, the premier site for all of your technology news in bite-sized portions, those of you who are on a diet in terms of the news. We have here Schwitt1, you got to be careful when you say that on the air. Schwitt1 writes with news that the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, has resigned her post. Not resigned from her post, but resigned her post. Napolitano entered the office at the beginning of President Obama's first term, and she was only the third person to hold the position since it was created in response to the September 11th attacks. Because, you know, we need that. In a statement, she said the Department of Homeland Security has improved the safety of travelers, implemented smart steps that make our immigration system more fair, but life isn't fair, is it? And focused while deploying record resources to protect our nation's borders. You know, like drones. Worked with states, we're going to talk about drones in a second here, worked with states to build resiliency and make our nation's emergency and disaster response capabilities more robust. We're going to talk about robustness in a minute here too. And partnered with the private sector to improve our cybersecurity. Napolitano will be she's taking over the presidency of the University of California's 10-campus education system. So you go from Secretary of Homeland Security to Education. Maybe she should have been the Secretary of Education then. UC officials, that would be a scary regime, wouldn't it? We see you cheating, I'm afraid we're going to have to blow you up. UC officials believe that her cabinet experiences, which include helping to lead responses to hurricanes and tornadoes and overseeing some anti-terrorism measures, which will be useful in school, I'm sure, will help UC administer its federal energy and nuclear weapons labs and aid its federally funded research in medicine and other areas. You know, they talked about people being subversive, and I don't want to get too far from the technical aspect of the show here, but because I tend to do that. Talk about terrorism. Well, kids tend to be pretty subversive, don't they? I mean, I know I am. I don't consider myself a child anymore, but I have been called a kid recently. I'm not offended, of course. It's just, you know, people who are older than me tend to look down on me in terms of age. No problem. You know, no big deal. But children tend to be terrorists, don't they? They like to terrorize other children, don't they? So I think Janet Napolitano would be great for Secretary of Education. She could stop terrorism in its tracks. You know, the stomp out bullying and all that crap. Yeah, she could do that. Just rename bullying as terrorism, and you get tons of backing, and you could blow up kids to boot. It sounds like a dream job, really. You get to blow up kids, you get to call kids terrorists, and you get to accuse them of being terrorists at the same time. It sounds like a dream job, really. I would love to do it. Get to blow up children and call them terrorists. And you know, that may sound like a threat to you, that I'm threatening to blow up children. It's not at all. I love kids when they behave. But words can be misconstrued, can't they? And that's the topic of this story here, which we've talked about a little bit before. Words being misconstrued, words being misinterpreted, words being taken too seriously. Because that's a problem we have in society, isn't it? People tend to take things way too seriously. You know, me and David Toulis of Nuganomics, we joke around a lot. You know, he and I have this sense of humor that's a little dry, sure. We make fun of the good people, as he calls them, but like I say, I have other words for them that I cannot say on the air. We make fun of the good people, sure. And sometimes you can't tell when I'm joking, and hey, you know, I can't either. But don't take much of what we say too seriously. right? Like David Toulous's show, he's a lot more serious than I am. Sort of lighthearted over here on my show, Generation Z, where we talk about technology and all that good stuff. But I tend to be a little bit more lighthearted, but I do talk about serious issues. But like I say, people tend to blow things out of proportion, and that is exactly what happened here. The Facebook massacre joker. It's been blown out of proportion, he says. This is a story from CNET. He says, I just think it got taken out of context. Those were some of Justin Carter's first words to the media after being released on bail following 4 months of jail on terroristic threat charges. See what I mean about the terrorism? His head shaved and his attitude one of guarded relief. Carter explained to CNN's New Day that he, continued on next page, that he never thought the comments he made on Facebook would have landed him in jail. Now, who would have thought, really? He said, I certainly would have thought a lot more about what I said and how permanent my writing is and everyone's writing, and I just want to make it clear that people should be very, very careful what they say. Oh, this guy's grammar is not so great. What they say, and it's being recorded all the time if you say it on any website anywhere, and you can get in trouble for something that's not something you should get in trouble for. And I just want people to be warned. The public education system at its best, ladies and gentlemen, but also, not to knock the kid. Maybe his grammar is not the greatest, big deal. But the kid doesn't need to be in jail. Kid, he's older than me, he's 19. He says some might even see a sarcastic NSA joke slipped in there. I would have made one for sure, to show that he has a very dry sense of humor, which is, everyone's favorite, right? Carter is the 19-year-old Texan who, after a game of League of Legends, that's that free game on Steam, got into a spat with another player on Facebook. Yeah, sure, you argue about games, it happens, right? I mean, we've all done it, especially online, because you can trash talk a little bit more freely online, can't you? But he did, and it says here, he was called crazy. He then replied that he actually was, in these words. I think I must shoot up a kindergarten and watch the blood of the innocent rain down and eat the beating heart of one of them. Ha ha ha! The evil laugh is added in there by me, but for effect. Most people would have noticed the sarcasm, especially if it's true, as his family says, that he added LOL and JK after the comment. You think they could have released that, right? A court could have released that, I'm sure. He got elaborate about it, and maybe a little distasteful, maybe. But it's obviously a sarcastic response. One of his lawyers, Chad Van Brunt, told CNN. That's a great name for a lawyer, isn't it? Van Brunt. Yeah. Obviously sarcastic response, said lawyer Chad Van Brunt. That's what he told CNN. A woman in Canada did not see the sarcasm. Canadians tend to be pretty laid back, too. That's kind of odd. And don't think I'm making a blanket statement there, because I know Canadians, and all of them who I know are very laid back people. It says a woman in Canada did not see the sarcasm. She informed Carter's local police, which led to him being jailed on $500,000 bail. Now, hold on a second. You know how much $500,000 is, right? It's $500,000. Most of us will never see $500,000 in one place at one time, right? Like, I know I probably won't see $500,000 in one place at one time, unless it's in dealing with a station where we got money to throw around because we're rich. No, not really. But $500,000 is a lot of money. Money that most people do not have to spend on their kid who just got themselves in jail. $500,000 bail, that's a lot of money. Let me say that again, that's a lot of money. A mystery benefactor put up the money Thursday for his release, and that's yesterday. So good for him, for sure, putting up that money, but who was he? We do not know. He or she or it. Would have been an alien. I've been listening to Coast too much, it may have been an alien. Justin Carter's ordeal is by no means over, though, unfortunately. He was offered a plea deal of 8 years in jail, which to many might be a more precise and serious definition of the word crazy. I may be provoked to shoot up a high school or kindergarten if I was threatened with 8 years in jail for saying things on Facebook. I mean, seriously. And no, I'm not serious about that. But seriously, 8 years in jail for saying something. A hate crime, I guess you could call it. I don't know. In fighting his case, he now faces the prospect of 10 years in jail, should his lawyers not prevail. His other lawyer, Donald Flannery, it's a good Irish name, Donald Flannery, told CNN, We think that it's outrageous that someone not unlike anyone in this country who is online who says something that may be inappropriate, but it's not criminal to get charged with a crime. But is not criminal gets charged with a crime. There we go. See, what he's saying here is that what he did was not criminal. Saying something like that online, it's not a crime. But he's being charged with a crime. What the crime is, I don't know. You know, I don't know what he's being charged with. I haven't found out, but it's probably something really stupid. Flannery is in an aggressive mood about the case. Can you blame him? He explained, "We can tell it's sarcastic from the comments, so we'll be filing a motion to dismiss the prosecution because it violates his First Amendment as applied to him. Going forward on this case is not the right thing to do." It's unfortunate for our good buddy there, Carter. It's unfortunate for Mr. Carter that he's no longer a minor. You know, as I am no longer a minor myself. It's unfortunate for him that he's no longer a minor, because I'm sure they would not charge him as severely were he a minor, were he 17 or 16 or 15. You know, I don't think they would hit him as hard, but because he's 19, he said something maybe he shouldn't have said, but again, that's not a crime, right? I would not have said what he said, but that doesn't make it a crime. Because I think it's in poor taste, doesn't mean it's a crime. And that's what they're going with. They're saying that it is in fact a crime. Never mind that the whole First Amendment thing actually exists. You know, the First Amendment is that wonderful thing that was invented pretty much so we could say things that offend people, right? I mean, consider the First Amendment. If it was there, you have the freedom to say whatever unless it offends somebody. I mean, think about that for a second here. Think of where that would lead. You know, then you get hate speech, which is a thing. You get hate speech laws. You know, you can't say that because that offends a certain demographic. Not that offending a certain demographic is good or right, but I don't think it should be criminal, right? I don't think someone should be thrown in jail for saying something about someone else. You know, no threat was made. He just said something that maybe the other person didn't like. Thus, he should be thrown in jail. That's the logic that we have to deal with here in the United States currently. And hopefully, Generation Z, we, the young people, you know, you and me, maybe even this Carter guy, Mr. Carter here, maybe even he and I can work to make this no longer, to make this not be so any longer. Because these laws are put in place by our forefathers. These laws that make no sense were put in place by our fathers and our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers and even before them. They're put in place by them, and there's no need for them, some of these. I tend to, so my intent is clear, I tend to lean libertarian, sure. You know, I think that can be said of a lot of people here in the area. You know, the South is a great place. And I notice that libertarian policies, libertarian leanings tend to be relatively prominent here in the South. You know, people just want to be left alone. We just want to be left alone. You know, I don't want some law to get in my way of just having fun, maybe. It hurts nobody else, that sort of thing, right? It doesn't break any sort of biblical law or anything like that, so why should it be a law? Why should it be illegal, right? So, you know, that's my stance on that. And maybe you and I, Generation Z here, we can help to change that. Because we are the people who are going to be in power, right? We, the people here, the young generation, now that I'm no longer a minor, I can vote, right? I can buy weaponry. I can buy tobacco products, as I have done. Not cigarettes, of course. I'm a cigar man myself. But you know, we can work to change this. We can work to change the situation that's so prevalent in our society. A situation where freedom of speech is being choked out by the agenda of those who are in power now, who don't need to be in power later. We can change that, you and I, the voters, future voters. We can change that. And I hope we do. I really do, because the direction that we are going now is not one that I appreciate. Okay? So anyway, let's get back to the technology, because this is not a politics show. This is a show where we talk about technology. And this is a show where we talk about technology, sure, but I cannot help but bring in my personal views in this. If you disagree, hey, cool, right? Because disagreement and healthy debate are a part of a healthy society. Because if we all agreed with each other, nothing would ever get done, right? If we all agree on such and such, then nothing would ever get done, because there would be no compromise. There would be no, of course, sometimes there should be no compromise, but there would be no healthy debate and formulating of ideas to counter arguments. to create counter arguments. There would be no such thing as that if we didn't have debate and if we didn't have disagreement. So I encourage you to disagree with me. And I encourage you, if you do disagree with me, to send me an email. Shoot me an email. Send me a line, as it were. You can do so, Generation Z Generation Z 1240. There we go. Generation Z 1240 at gmail.com if you want to send me an email. And I do encourage you to. Generation Z 1240 at gmail.com. And you can send me an email that way. There's also the Twitter, which is at Generation Z 1240. Just do a search for Generation Z 1240. You'll find it. I haven't been tweeting as much as I should, but I'm starting to get on the ball. Just recently I tweeted a funny video, one that I found was pretty funny, of the Zimmerman trial. And I thought it was pretty funny. It was the Skype call. Why don't I go ahead and talk about that right now? Because I thought it was so funny. To get away from politics, because I'm not going to say my position on the Zimmerman trial. I don't think that's necessary. David M. Carmichael has done that for us already. His show, which is Preservative Talk Radio, he's on from 11 to 12. And he's done that enough already for us to talk about that position, so I'm not going to do it here. But this video was really funny. It was this video, and they were on a Skype call with this professional. I think he worked for a university, something like that. Whatever. He's a witness, I think. He's being called into testimony to testify, I should say. He's being called to testimony. He's called there to testify. And they had him, they're giving his opinion, saying his thing. He's on a cell phone while they're looking at him over the Skype. And people started calling that Skype line, that Skype account, I should say. People started calling it. Not just people, lots of people with really funny names started calling it. It started popping up on the screen doing like, whoop, 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 whoop. It does when you get a Skype call. And it got to the point where the screen was filled with them, filled with these windows calling this Skype account. And this is live on the air, live on TV, which we happen to be, by the way, Channel 2 and Channel 18 on your cable provider over here at Generation Z and Copperhead 1240, 910, and 1190. Anyway, that got over the TV. It's really funny. It's a funny video. If you want to see it, I've linked to it. Of course, you can always find it just by searching YouTube, but I'd appreciate it if you went to the Generation Z Twitter account and followed it, and so we can get some communication going that way too, because communication is healthy for the show. I would not do this show if I did not have people to listen. That wouldn't make any sense, right? But having listener feedback is extremely important to the health of the show, and I have been getting some very good feedback, and I do appreciate it. So if you want to email me, you can, and the Twitter there is at Generation Z 1240. You know how to spell generation, I'm sure. You're intelligent people out there. And just stick a Z at the end and 1240, no spaces, none of that. Generation Z 1240 at gmail.com as well is the email. But Generation Z 1240 is a Twitter account if you want to search for that and follow. And we can get some tweets going. Get the Twitter lively. Got a few followers already. Just started up not too long ago, so that's good. So you can get me at the Generation Z Twitter there, Generation Z 1240. So PC World Magazine, you may have heard of that. PC World Magazine, it's an old publication, 30 years, more than 30 years, just a little bit more. Well, not anymore. So they've hit their deadline. Deadline, get it? PC World Magazine is no more. Story from slashdot.org. It says here, after slightly more than 30 years, PC World, one of the most successful computer magazines of all time, is discontinuing print publication. It was the last general interest magazine for PC users, so it really is the end of an era. Over at Time, the magazine, I paused to reflect upon the end of the once booming category, in part as a former editor at PC World, but mostly as a guy who really, really loved to read computer magazines. That was written by Harry MCC, or Harry McC, however you want to say, over at slashdot.org. So, yeah, truly the end of an era, although I will say PC World was not the magazine it used to be. If you read the comments over there at the slashdot.org feed, I guess you'd say, for that story, people in the comments have showed their displeasure at the amount of ads that were in the magazine. That's one of the reasons I like 2600, and again, I'm not being paid by 2600 organization to say this about their magazine. I just really like the magazine. I think they put out good stuff. They don't really have that many ads, really. The ads they do have is just for themselves. Just to say, hey, subscribe, or hey, we have a conference, or hey, we have a website, hey, there's a radio show, that sort of thing. Good stuff, and they do have my personal endorsement, although not my professional endorsement, I'll say that much. But good stuff they put out there at 2600 magazine. Really nice, I really like it. It's a great magazine. There's also a 2600 Facebook group, I guess if you want to check that out too. Good stuff. And tell them I sent you if you want to. Or not. Whatever. It's the 2600 group on Facebook. Anyway, let's move on. We talked about Janet Napolitano. You know, DARPA. Have you heard of DARPA? I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have. You know, it's not any secret anymore that DARPA exists. It's the offspring of ARPA, who created ARPANET, which was the predecessor to the internet. There's your computer history for the day, by the way. That ARPANET is what led into the internet, which is what we use today, separate from the World Wide Web, of course. The World Wide Web is on the internet, like the www up there. So anyway, that's your history lesson for the day for computers. DARPA, or ARPA, helped to create the internet for military purposes so that they could communicate in case of a nuclear attack. They could remain networked and communicate from sites if the phone lines ever went down, that sort of thing. They could still communicate over the internet, or the ARPANET, in case of nuclear attack by the dirty Ruski commies, right? And so that was a big fear back then. You know, War Games, you ever see War Games? With Matthew Broderick? Good movie, great movie, one of my favorite movies. That's an example of ARPANET, sort of, how he gets into the system, NORAD, and ends up accidentally, supposedly launching nukes against Russia. Good movie, really funny movie. But anyway, that's DARPA. So DARPA has unveiled a 6-foot-tall humanoid robot called Atlas for researchers to program and pilot. This is from The Verge. We all love The Verge, don't we? It's not quite Terminator, but it's not that far off either. Check out Atlas, a new 6-foot-2-inch tall, so it's as tall as me, 6-foot-2-inch tall humanoid robot designed for a contest being held by the U.S. Defense Department. The 290-pound machine is being called one of the most advanced humanoid robots ever built, in no small part due to its 28 different hydraulic joints and freakishly good balance. Gyroscopic, right? Unveiled publicly for the first time earlier this week, it's the latest robot from Boston Dynamics, the company behind such internet robotic sensations as Petman, a robotic man, and Alpha Dog, the robotic dog. That's fun to watch, the Alpha Dog. It's supposed to be a cargo carrier. That's what it's meant for. Anyway, both designed for the U.S. Department of Defense's Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA. Department of Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. Let me say that again without mistakes. Defense's Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. There you go. But unlike those previous robots, which were restricted to military and company usage, the keys to Atlas will be turned over to a few lucky civilians so they can program and pilot it using their own software. Maybe it'll be Linux-based, huh? That'd be cool. That's because Atlas is one of several robots competing in DARPA's Virtual Robotics Challenge, a public contest with a $2 million grand prize that DARPA launched in October last year. The contest invited researchers from universities and companies across the country to design and build the best humanoid robotic systems they could for the purpose of disaster response. Think the Fukushima nuclear meltdown in the wake of 2011, that 2011 Japanese tsunami, which was kind of a big deal, wasn't it? Imagine if they didn't have to send people, instead they could send robots, because sending robots over people would be a pretty good idea. It'd be helpful, wouldn't it? So that we didn't have to have irradiated persons. Right? And imagine if we had that during the Chernobyl disaster, in Ukraine. That was a big thing. That was a terrible thing that happened, for sure. And there were a lot of things that caused it. There's a lot of debate over what caused it. We won't get into that. But imagine if they had these robots to go in there and stop the meltdown, maybe, help with that. Maybe they had the robots to go in there. And just imagine what sort of implications this has for firefighting, for law enforcement, these robots. Kind of interesting. We'll talk about that in just a second, and we'll get into perpetual flight from airplanes.
Not the mama, not the mama, not the mama.
The Man Radio Station.
Not the mama.
You do that one more time, and I'm going to throw you across the room.
Hunting, fishing, NASCAR, Tennessee talk, Southern rock, kickin' country. Crawl 40 the Copperhead. Could you imagine not getting washed for days? Yuck. How do you think your vehicle feels? Treat yourself and your vehicle to a sparkling shine inside and out at Country Boys and Toys. 9606 Dayton Pike, Sunny Days, and don't ever sell your vehicle until you get a detail. You're losing money. Remember how it felt the first day you brought your new ride home? Clean as a whistle, with that new car smell. Well, you can enjoy it again and again, over and over now, with auto detailing from Country Boys and Toys in Sunny Daisy. Call 309-0426. That's 309-0426. Owner-operator Chuck takes time, care, and pride in the smallest detail. Inside, outside, under the hood, tire and fender wells. He'll shampoo your carpet and apply a level treatment. He turned our 1999 beat-up, dirty old Jeep into a showroom vehicle. And that for the price of a tank of gas and a couple of pizzas. Affordable, professional, courteous, quick service. That's what you get at Country Boys and Toys Auto Detailing and Small Repair. There's no time to waste. Treat yourself and your vehicle today. Call Country Boys and Toys Auto Detailing at 309-0426. That's 309-0426. Country Boys and Toys Auto Detailing. 9606 Dayton Pike, Sunny Daisy. Call 309-0426. And remember, if it rides, floats, or flies, Chuck can detail it. Veterans get a discount. Just ask.
Hi, buddy. It's Chuck, Country Boys and Toys, Sunny Daisy, Tennessee. We take pride in detailing your ride. Come by and see me.
Want to save money on credit card costs? Are charges leaking thousands of nickels from your small business? Hi, David Toulis here. Petroleum Card Services of Chattanooga has been serving small business since 1995 and will be happy to explain how to save money when your customers use plastic. If you are interested in holding on to those nickels and dimes from credit card fees, call 298-1294 for a free analysis. That's 298-1294. Ask for Bob. 298-1294. Petroleum Card Services. Man, plug the leak.
Looking good through the afternoon, lots of sunshine, highs near 87 tonight, fair, comfortable, lows 65 to 67. For Saturday, a few clouds, could see an afternoon shower or thunderstorm pass through, highs near 85 with a few more widely scattered showers and storms Saturday night through Sunday. It's Super Summer Savings time at Walmart, where you can get a main stage 5-piece dining set on clearance for just $148.50. Find huge savings like this throughout the store at Walmart. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Matt Report.
To enjoy today.
The Man Radio Station.
I will rule the world.
Hunting, fishing, NASCAR, Tennessee Talk, Southern Rock, Kickin' Country. 1240 The Copperhead.
CBS News, I'm Steve Kathan. The defense is making its last appeal to the jury in the George Zimmerman murder case. CBS's Peter King is live at the courthouse in Sanford, Florida.
Defense attorney Mark O'Mara has shown pictures of George Zimmerman's head wounds to show that he acted in self-defense.
This is undeniable. This is significant injury.
He says Trayvon Martin started the confrontation.
The person who decided this is going to continue, that it was going to become a violent event, was the guy who didn't go home when he had the chance to. It was the guy who decided to lie in wait, I guess, plan his move.
O'Mara says the state wants jurors to make assumptions. He's telling them to look at the evidence. Steve?
Developments this morning in the case of the NSA leakers. CBS's Larry Miller is at the foreign desk.
At a meeting of human rights groups and Russian lawmakers, Edward Snowden said he wants temporary asylum in Russia. President Putin has said he could have permanent asylum, but he'd have to stop leaking U.S. information, which Snowden clearly doesn't want to do. Temporary asylum would give Snowden a way out of Moscow Airport's transit terminal while his future is decided, but there's no indication that Putin will play ball.
Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano is leaving the Obama administration. She's set to become the next president of the University of California. Reports say smoke rose from the wreckage of the crashed South Korean jetliner overnight at San Francisco Airport. It happened as a sling was being used to move the fuselage. CBS's Carter Evans says in the investigation there will be a close look at cockpit warning systems.
What we need to know now is why didn't any one of them get these pilots' attention earlier than it did in enough time for them to pull up and actually make a go-around or make it to the runway itself?
Overseas, Friday prayers at a mosque outside Cairo, Egypt, where supporters of ousted President Morsi gathered. Later, they shouted down the military and called the army chief a traitor at demonstrations. 50 pro-Morsi supporters were killed by troops on Monday. Turning 16 today, Malala Yousafzai, the Pakistani girl nearly killed by the Taliban, spoke at the UN.
Dear sisters and brothers, we realize the importance of light when we see darkness. We realize the importance of our voice when we are silenced.
Malala's passionate speech also took aim at the Taliban for opposing education for girls.
The extremists were and they are afraid of books and pens. The power of education.
But she said just one book and one pen can change the world. Tammy McCormick, CBS News, Washington.
Forget next week. Twinkies have already made a comeback today at 1,600 Walmart stores. Formal rollout for the snacks, sidelined by the Hostess bankruptcy, is Monday. Wall Street Dow's up 19. This is CBS News.
Copperhead 1240, Southern Rock, Kicking Country, Tennessee Talk.
The Man Radio Station.
Copperhead 1240.
I've exhausted every evil plan in my filing cabinet. From A to Y.
A to Y?
Yeah, A to Y, you know the alphabet.
What about Z?
C.
Z, the letter after Y.
W, X, Y, Z, Plan Z. Here it is. Just like you said.
Oh, boy.
Oh. It's evil. It's diabolical. It's lemon-scented. This Plan Z can't possibly fail. And I will rule the world.
All right, we're here. Whoops. All right, we're here. What's up? What's up, everybody? Generation Z here, and we're back. I'm your host, Russell, and today we're going to be talking more about the future of airplanes. Airplanes are always cool, except for when they crashed at SFO. That was kind of a bad thing, wasn't it? We're also going to talk about drones, except they're not drones the way you'd think of them. They're more like land drones. What do I mean by that? Well, we already talked about it in some detail. We talked about DARPA, which is the, let me find it again, Defense's Advanced Research Projects Agency. DARPA, that's what they call it, because they're fancy guys over there. They love their acronyms over there at the Defense Department, don't they? They really love their acronyms, especially when it comes to naming projects, like SHIELD, for instance, if you're familiar with the Marvel Universe. So anyway, the DARPA Atlas robot is it's a biped, right? It means it has 2 legs, 2 feet. It walks on 2 legs like we do. It's 6'2", so about the same height as me, about there. Maybe a little bit shorter, maybe a little bit taller. I don't know. I'm around 6'2" myself. And what, you want to know my weight too? Forget it. And it's $2 million is the grand prize for developing it. It's part of a public contest. This bipedal animal thing, walking Destructo bot. It says that DARPA launched in October last year. The contest invited researchers from universities and companies across the country to design and build the best humanoid robotic systems they could for the purpose of disaster response. Think the Fukushima nuclear meltdown in the wake of the 2011 Japanese tsunami. Like I was saying, it has implications for law enforcement and fire departments and that sort of thing. DARPA announced today that it has picked 6 teams from around the country, including ones fielded by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Oh man, imagine those things with jetpacks. Ooh. And the acclaimed, not the computer company acclaimed, but the acclaimed robotics school, Carnegie Mellon University. Carnegie, those of us who live in this area, we're familiar with the Carnegies, aren't we? To advance onto the first series of physical trials scheduled for this coming December in Miami. If there's any place for physical trials, I'm sure it's Miami. It's hot weather down there. It's a physical trial just to walk around down there about now, I'm sure. No, but Florida's a nice place. I've been there. Boca Raton, nice place. Anyway, I'm getting way off topic, aren't I? But all those teams had to build their own robot designs. Robots, as they used to say. Robot designs. Another 7 teams selected by DARPA will get to compete using Atlas, but they have to do so by programming the robot to do their own custom software. Using their own custom software. The teams already had a chance to test their software out on a computer-simulated version of Atlas. But now these 7 teams will see if their simulation-honed algorithms can run a real machine in real environments, said Gil Pratt, the DARPA Challenges program manager. We're familiar with those in radio, aren't we? In a statement. Whatever happens comes December in Miami, the contest is bound to be more exciting and terrifying than even the best episode BattleBots. Oh, I love that show. In the meantime, check out the video DARPA released showing the progression of Atlas from its earliest prototypes through to its final design revealed today. And you can check that out over at, over at The Verge. which is a website. Just do a Google search for The Verge or DARPA Atlas, spelled like Atlas, you know, the book by Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, spelled the same way. So if you want to check that out, I encourage you to over at theverge.com, I think it is. It's The Verge. It's worth checking out. It's a decent website too. Lots of cool news stories that I happen to pick up, steal. So, the future of airplanes, perpetual flight. Should we talk about that now or later? Oh, there's lots of stuff to talk about today too. There's also botnets. If you're familiar with computer security, you know about botnets. There's also Google's Schmidt talking about his relationship with Apple and how it has improved. You know, let's talk about Apple for just a second. They were just recently sort of entangled in a legal mess, weren't they? If you check the news, you'll see. If you're keeping tabs on Apple in terms of their legality and in terms of how they're doing as a company, you'll notice they've gotten in a little bit of trouble just not too recently. The trouble being they apparently are trying to establish a monopoly. They're trying to fix prices in the ebook industry. Now, people have differing opinions on fixing prices, right? Like our anarcho-capitalist friends that I'm sure David Toulis hangs out with a few of them, right? David Toulis over there at Nuganomics.com, which is also his show, which is on from 1 to 3 before me. And he was so gracious as to tease my show today, so I do thank him for that, David Toulis. Great guy, great show he puts out. He talked about interesting stuff today, didn't he? Interesting stuff. So I gather my tongue. It's all tangled up. I have to untangle it. Our anarcho-capitalist friends, I'm sure, are familiar with fixing prices, right? Some say that there's nothing wrong with it. Some say that there's a lot of things wrong with it. So it depends on your viewpoint regarding that. But either way, Apple is sort of caught up in a bit of legal trouble regarding fixing prices with the ebook industry. They made deals with publishers so that they would have different prices on different services, and Amazon would get higher prices, that sort of thing. It was mainly to compete with Amazon, and they lost the case. Apple did, meaning they had to pay damages to Amazon, which is fair. You know, they lost the case, but Apple's planning to appeal. So we'll see how that goes, and that's an interesting case. I'll keep you updated on that, because economy is sort of important to technology. You know, like money plays a big part in technology because, well, for one, it funds it, and for another, we need money to buy it. So if prices go up, it affects you and me. So I'll let you know what happens regarding this. Hopefully prices will go down, because that's what we want, is for prices to go down. Prices go down, that's good for you and me, because, you know, we're not exactly floating in cash, are we, you and I? Well, maybe you are, but I'm not. Hopefully you are. You know, I hope you're well off, you listening here on the radio. And, you know, if you are, that's good for you, but I happen to not be. So I tend to shoot for the lowest price I can. And if there's price fixing going on, that kind of doesn't really help matters much, does it, for you and I who are trying to get the best deal possible. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. You know, I saw a funny sort of I guess you'd call it a political cartoon, although it wasn't really a cartoon. It was a political image that someone had made on a certain image board that I happen to frequent. I will not disclose the name of it because I value my career. But a certain image board that I frequent, and it was a picture of an anarcho-capitalist, and he's in this suit, business suit, and an anarcho-communist. And he was shirtless, and he's got drawings on his chest with like magic marker, and he's real skinny, holding up the sign like, you know, communism now, but anarchy as well, because, you know, that makes sense. And in the frame next to him is an anarcho-capitalist, and he's wearing a business suit, and he looks very business-like. And the caption was something along the lines of the difference between anarcho-communists and anarcho-capitalists. I thought it was kind of funny. You know, I tend to have capitalistic leanings, I tend to have anarchistic leanings, but I also happen to have libertarian leanings too, so I don't know where I stand really. I know where I stand on specific issues, but in terms of labeling me, I don't know, because I'm not a huge fan of labels really, but when it comes to labeling me and my political views, I don't know. I guess it's safe to call me libertarian, and you know, you can do that, I won't be offended. Call me communist, I'll punch you in the face, but no, I'm kidding. And by the way, if you want to accuse me of different things, you can do just that. If you want to email me, you can, no problem. Because emails help the show, they really do. You want to send in an article, fine. You know, maybe you want to be on the air, hey, cool too. We got advertising you want done, we can set that up for sure. You want to advertise on the show, no problem. So you can email me, generationz12401240 at gmail.com if you want to be on the show, maybe. You have an interesting thing you want to bring forth, you want to call in, hey, no problem. generationz1240 at gmail.com. We can set that up for you, and we can have a friendly discussion about technology, too, or politics, whatever. generationz1240 at gmail.com is the email. So, don't be discouraged, and feel free to send in an email, no problem. It's no big deal. It's just a thing, no pressure, none of that. I don't bite, don't worry. So generationz1240 at gmail.com is the email, because Gmail, well, I use Thunderbird as a front end, as my email client, but in terms of servers, unfortunately, we have to use Gmail. Oh well. So the future of airplanes apparently is perpetual flight. Now, what good is an airplane that never lands, right? If an airplane never lands, no one can board it. So what's the point of perpetual flight? Well, we'll find out from this article from Extreme Tech. Casinos can make money because most patrons usually end up losing. Right. Flying a glider has a lot in common with going to a casino. You typically start out with a little boost, and sometimes with favorable conditions, you can even increase your height. If you stay in the game long enough, though, you will eventually lose all that you started with and crash and die. Only the most skilled and lucky pilots can stay aloft as long as they desire. But even that is changing as we turn our technological sights towards perpetual flight. Prime example. Researchers at I think that's how you say it, Lehigh? Maybe Lehigh? Maybe it's French, Lehigh University, are attempting, it's Lehighh, like Lehigh. Lehigh University are attempting to build a pilotless glider that would be capable of endless flight. And we talked a few days ago about the solar-powered plane, so maybe that ties in, we'll see. Their aspirations hinge on the concept of dynamic soaring, which can be traced back to an 1883 Nature paper by polymath Lord Raleigh, perhaps, like the place in North Carolina, Raleigh, of Why the Sky is Blue fame, entitled The Soaring of Birds. That sounds amazing, doesn't it? The new meets the old in mankind's long-standing quest to perpetually stay aloft. Because we all want to fly, don't we? It's sort of one of mankind's carnal desires, is to fly for some reason, even though God did not give us wings. A prime example. Researchers at Leigh University, we already talked about that. Simply stated, dynamic soaring involves making use of a non-uniform wind to gain lift or momentum. It sounds interesting, but that doesn't actually tell us much of how to do it. One might expect that there is a good theory out there that tells us how to proceed, a physics of soaring, if you will. The problem is we don't even have we don't even have any such theory for sailing. And that's only 2 dimensions. Most websites and popular textbook descriptions of sailing account for the ability to tack upwind by a nebulous appeal to largely ineffectual Bernoulli forces. I don't know, I'm not a scientist, I don't know what that means. These accounts then usually trail off into increasingly fractalized and largely irrelevant partial differential equations, which goes way over my head for sure, maybe not over yours, but over mine, which serve only to obscure the lack of fundamental insight. How then are we to sufficiently understand complex 3D flow effects in the air? That's a good question. In order for a perpetual glider to stay aloft by dynamic soaring, an onboard control would likely need to translate sensor data into flight adjustments according to some algorithm. Clues as to what form such an algorithm might take could perhaps be harvested by observing those aerial champions who make sustained flap-free flight routine, turkey vultures. Many large birds of prey, like hawks and eagles, can soar the odd thermal until their heart is content. Well, good for them. But that doesn't help us, does it? Typically, though, they choose to boost their flight with amply powered wing beats on a regular basis, which we can't really do because we don't have wings. But gliders do, so maybe they'll invent gliders that flap, I don't know. The reason that most birds are well equipped for soaring will still laboriously pound the wind is that they usually have some place to go. They have a destination in mind. That's typically not the case for all large birds of prey, though. You see them circling all the time. Unfortunately, they tend to do it over me and mistake me for being dead, but whatever. In 2010, there were almost 2 million turkey vultures in the U.S. At 4 million square miles of U.S. turf, that gives just 2 square miles per bird. In other words, these guys really have no place pressing to be. Instead, they need to be able to hang out efficiently just above the treetops to scan the highways for any opportunity in their competitive roadkill marketplace, the dead market, if you will. This this situation and a remarkable suite of flight adaptations has led to an impressive flight culture where these turkey vultures closely monitor each other's performance, gauging for the presence of thermals or signs that invisible updrafts may be had. So what does that have to do with us flying, really? Well, apparently we're going to use, and this gets really technical, so I'm not going to get too much farther into it. We're apparently going to study the flight patterns of turkey vultures and apply them to gliders so that we may perpetually fly for, I guess, drone purposes, sure, for Google Maps, that sort of thing, satellite, although not really satellite, aerial views of places like NYC, places like that, maybe Chattanooga. Get an aerial view of the place so we may better map out everything. It's interesting, perpetual flight, yeah, maybe. I hope they do not use it for drone purposes because that would not be very fun, now would it? So, yeah, there's that, I guess. So, let's talk about botnets now. Why don't we? Botnets are kind of a big deal, aren't they? You are probably familiar with botnets if you are computer savvy, especially tech savvy, right? You're probably familiar with botnets. Well, let's explain them for the layman. Botnets are networks of computers that are controlled by themselves, because they're botnets, to create a large network of computers that can be used for, let's say, nefarious purposes, like hacking into large corporations where you need lots of computational power. So you gather the power of a bunch of computers in the botnet, so you have one large mass of computers working at the same goal for, say, DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service, right? To take down websites that you don't like, that sort of thing. So the botnets work. So botnets aren't really that big a deal anymore, are they? It's from SC Magazine. That's what people say often to Richard Henderson, security strategist for Fortinet's FortiGuard Labs. Despite the continued rise of these networks of compromised computers, he says, the average person is typically unaware of how pervasive and pernicious, that's a fun word, these threats have become. Botnets are a pretty big deal, and the impact of botnets is woefully understated, he says. The owners of botnets have been really good at staying under the radar, and that's why we don't think they're a big deal anymore. While these purveyors of nefarious malware may be good at staying out of the spotlight, it's clear that their creations are a front and center problem for corporate security pros as well as consumers. Last year, four of the top 5 biggest threats to home-based networks were botnets, according to KindSight Security Labs, which also reported that nearly 50% of home network infections in 2012, were the result of botnet-related malware. Ooh, that's not good now, is it? Because we do not want to be part of a botnet, because, that makes you liable for all sorts of illegal activity. Because if they do these things with botnets without your knowledge, you could be charged with it because there's no proof that you didn't do it yourself, right? So, and according to Roger Thompson, they have a picture of him over at SC Magazine, Chief Emerging Threats Researcher for ICSA Labs, a Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania-based independent division of Verizon, new botnets are being created all the time. Now, that's one of the great things about Pennsylvania. They have these cool names like Mechanicsburg. New botnets are being created all the time. It's difficult to eradicate them because there's just so many of them, he says. Thompson, who wrote one of the first antivirus programs in 1987, way back when, before the World Wide Web was even a thing, says threats have modified over the years. As criminals have improved their techniques, often incorporating the ability to disable antivirus products into their botnet downloader. For financial institutions and other high-profile corporate targets of botnets, the related fallout from an attack, whether aimed at financial gain or just to cause instability and mayhem, our anarchist hacker friends, can affect services and internal business and cost millions of dollars. And the scary thing is, it only costs the creator of the botnet his time to make these botnets that infect your computer. But it costs the victims millions of dollars. So the ratio of cost to cost is very low. In terms of, it costs me very little to make a botnet, but it costs you a lot to have to repair the damages I've done with my botnet, right? It's kind of like a gun, actually, although not on the same scale. A gun, it doesn't really cost a whole lot to buy one, but the damage it can cause, it costs a whole lot to repair. Now, that's not to say guns should be illegal. I do not stand on that stance at all. That's not how I stand even close. I think everyone should have a gun, actually. But it's similar because the effects are sometimes irreparable and very expensive. So that's a similarity there between botnets and weaponry. And you do not want to be infected by a botnet. That is for sure. And some of them are so bad that they're almost undetectable except by the very best of experts. And when you're infected by them, you can actually hurt other people without even knowing. And it's not your fault. Don't feel bad if you get infected, because sometimes, I may be infected and I may not even know it. So be wary of botnets, research them, and find out ways where you can sort of protect yourself from these botnets. Be careful when you're downloading something. Don't download stuff from sites you don't recognize, sites you don't trust. Don't do that. Don't download things that are looking suspicious to you, because it's not worth it. It's really not worth it, because if it looks suspicious to you, just don't do it. Especially on your computer. If it looks suspicious to you, stay away. You don't have to download that. Or make sure when you're downloading something, you're installing it. Make sure when you do that you check all the checkboxes there. Make sure, I don't mean you check them, I mean make sure that you inspect the checkboxes there when you're installing a program. Make sure that you don't have something checked that you don't want checked. You don't want something checked there that says install, Babylon toolbar. You don't want that, so uncheck that. You don't want that. You don't want the Yahoo toolbar. You don't want any of that crap. Just stay away from it. So make sure when you're installing a program that you are very, very careful during the process, because you can be fooled. I've fooled. I've started up Chrome or Firefox, and whoop-de-doo, there's a toolbar there that I didn't want. It's very frustrating. So be careful when you're doing this sort of thing, because you could become part of a botnet. You could be infected by a virus. It very well could happen. So you need to be cautious when operating your computer. And I know a lot of older folks are kind of afraid of computers, especially the internet, for some reason. And let me tell you, to all you elderly folks out there, let me just say, if you're out there listening here at Copperhead 1240, by the way, this is Generation Z, I happen to be your host, Russell. If you're out there listening, let me just say that don't be afraid of the internet, but be careful on the internet, because you do not want to be infected by botnets, you don't want to be infected by viruses, and you don't want to install software, even accidentally, that you don't want installed. Okay? So, that having been said, be careful on the internet, folks. That's the topic of today's show, really, is be careful. Be careful on the internet. Be careful when approaching a drone, because you don't know if it's going to shoot you. The Atlas drone here that they're talking about, that they may use for law enforcement, the bipedal drone. That's what it is, really. It's a bipedal robot that'll be controlled by different softwares. So be careful regarding those, because, well, approach them with caution. Approach the very idea of them with caution. Approach the very idea of government with caution. Approach everything with caution, because that's the way to healthy living. And, people say they have the secret to healthy living. My secret to healthy living is approach everything with caution. I don't mean be paranoid. I mean just pay attention, right? And if you do that, I can guarantee you, you'll be all right on the internet, right? You'll be all right on your computer. Follow these simple steps, and there's only one. It's be careful, and you'll be okay. So there's that for you here today, Generation Z. So we talked about a lot of things today. We covered a lot of topics. We talked about Janet Napolitano resigning. Hey, ding dong, the witch is dead. Well, gone anyway. Ding dong, the witch is gone. Over there at the DHS, the chief, Janet Napolitano, has resigned, so she is gone. We talked about PC World magazine being, well, gone, as well as Janet Napolitano. And DARPA unveiling their 6-foot-tall humanoid robot called Atlas that researchers are going to be looking into. And, that's a story that needs to be looked into further, and I will be covering that. This 6-foot-tall humanoid robot. I will be following that with great fervor, because that sort of thing is very scary to me. The idea of robots that patrol our streets. So thanks for listening, everyone. Generation Z. I should mention, we'll be starting the show at 7 o'clock a.m. on Monday, so listen for that. starting a morning show. So thanks for listening, everybody. Generation Z, I've been your host, Russell. See ya.
Looking good through the afternoon with lots of sunshine, highs near 87 tonight, fair, comfortable, low 65 to 67. For Saturday, a few clouds, could see an afternoon shower or thunderstorm pass through, highs near 85 with a few more widely scattered showers and storms Saturday night through Sunday. It's Super Summer Savings time at Walmart, where you can get a main stage 5-piece dining set on clearance for just $148.50. Find huge savings like this throughout the store at Walmart. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ford.
So enjoy today.
The Man Radio Station.
I will roll